was how safe was it to go into hospital clinics?
These days, it's very carefully managed, so that if you go into hospital to a routine clinic, you'll be separated from anybody who's coming in with suspected COVID-19. They're called COVID-free, COVID-secure. It's clearly demarcated. You're socially distancing. The nurses are all prepared for every eventuality. And I would say it's very safe. And if you've got a routine appointment or a diagnostic test, it's imperative that you go ahead and do these things. So I would say I wouldn't have any hesitation in going, because they'll be taking every precaution. We want people to go back to general practice. We want people to go to clinics. You know, the routine NHS work needs to continue. So the more confidence people have, and with the prevalence rates of the virus diminishing, everyone should have more confidence again.
Definitely. And say, obviously, I want to give a big shout out, obviously, to the Royal National ENT Hospital who looked after us. They were absolutely fantastic. So going forward, I think I just need to remind Mummy that we can't go to our appointments like she used to. Like, she normally gets there 45 minutes before the time. Ideally, you need to be there maybe 15 minutes before your appointment, because you won't get in any earlier.
That's it. Well, Lynda, that's really good to hear. Thank you for that story.
You're welcome. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Look after yourself, and you.
So basically, since obviously the government have allowed support bubbles, we've welcomed my 78-year-old mum back into the household, seen her as we would have done before lockdown. We've been seeing her distance before. It's been lovely. She's been able to cuddle her 2-year-old granddaughter for the first time in weeks. So there's been hugs all round. However, my little girl is going back to a childminder. So she'll be with about 3 or 4 other 2- and 3-year-olds in a house and a garden, and she keeps them outside as much as possible. But obviously there'll be lots of hand washing and sanitizing in place, but it's absolutely impossible to expect little ones to socially distance from each other and the childminder. So my question really is, with her coming back home and potentially still seeing my mum, who's older but healthy, in close contact, what the actual risk is.
Sure. Well, you know, your mum, you're right, is in a vulnerable group, even though she's got no obvious sort of pre-existing conditions that you mentioned. So she's part of your support bubble now. She lives on her own, presumably.
She lives on her own, yes. Yeah, she's very healthy. She has got high blood pressure, but it's well controlled with medication.
That's
and she's very fit,
So the risk is small. So she's effectively part of your household now in this support bubble, and essentially she would be allowed to come indoors with you and actually stay over if you wanted her to, and she wanted to stay. The children going out to nursery, of course, there's a potential for, you know, exposure to the virus there. However, we know that children themselves are very protected against the virus, and there's no strong evidence that they're transmitting highly like they do with ordinary flu or colds and coughs. So the risk is very small. The childminder clearly is seeing other children, so there's a potential area of risk there, but it's very small. As the prevalence rates fall across the UK generally, and children being relatively protected, it's something that you need to be aware of, but there's nothing to stop your mum coming over. But I think, again, trying to keep that close contact to a minimum is still quite sensible.
Okay.
They can stay under the same roof. They could have a quick hug. But I think wearing a face covering would be a good idea still, although it may seem very strange. But it's allowable, it's within the guidance, but I think still be aware and be careful.
Okay, thanks very much.
Pleasure.
Some reassurance there. Thanks.
I'm glad you're able. I'm glad they're all able to see each other again. It's something that so many people.
I know. There's so much in the media about the older kids distancing, and no one seems to mention the preschoolers. So it was just in my mind. You know, they don't seem to be coming up in the news at all, or guidelines.
The number of children who have been affected by COVID-19 is so tiny compared to the rest of the adult population that we believe, and I believe, the risk is really very small. But they touch things and they come into contact with things. So as long as they're washing their hands and your mum's doing the same and being careful about face coverings, should be fine.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Nice to speak to you.
And you. Bye. Bye.
My sister's fiance, his children are living with a shielded person at the moment, but the parents haven't allowed them to stay at my sister's house since March. They usually stay every other weekend and Tuesday for tea. When can this go back to normal, if possible?
Basically, you've got more than two households involved here.
Yes.
And therefore, it's against the guidance currently. The guidance is that if you've got, you can have a support bubble with one other household if one person lives alone. But the more households and of course, if kids have different parents, they can go from one parent to another. But the minute you put somebody else in that mix, you're increasing the risk of transmission.
Okay.
So the risk is still there. Prevalence rates are falling, and my advice would be that since we're seeing a downward trend with the levels of the virus, if you can be a bit more patient, anyone who's a bit more vulnerable should really, I think, continue to protect themselves a little bit, not expose them to any risk.
Okay, that's lovely. And my second question, if I may, both myself and my wife are shielding. I have asthma, my wife has Crohn's disease. My wife had a letter to self-isolate, but I work for Iceland Frozen Foods. They've been absolutely fantastic with me, saying that I can shield also and they pay me. I'm due to go back mid-July, but my wife obviously has still got to self-isolate till August the 1st. She's currently on azathioprine. I'm just a bit worried if I go back to work the middle of July, those 2-week period, anything could happen. I'm just a bit concerned.
Well, it's great that your firm, your employer has been sympathetic.
It's really, really good.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That's really good to hear. And we want more employers to be responsible and sympathetic like that. You'll be able to go back to work, especially if your asthma is well controlled. Your risk is very, very small.
Okay.
So that's good to know. And when you go back to work, hopefully that work, that it'll be what they call COVID secure. They'll be taking every precaution to make sure that you're not in close contact with public-facing roles, and with other employees. So your workplace should be really safe. And that means that anything you potentially could come into contact with and bring back to the household and expose your partner to would be minimised. She's on an immunosuppressant, so she's vulnerable. But as time goes on and the prevalence rates falls, the risk gets lower and lower. So I think that would be fine. If you can't work from home and it's COVID secure at work, I think again that would be acceptable.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
Just like to both of you.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time today, and we really do appreciate you guys giving us updates on the telly, on GMB, and it's fantastic.
So basically, since I had COVID, I've been suffering from postviral symptoms.
Yeah.
Mainly on my nervous system. So the question was, have you come across any other patients that seem to have suffered ongoing effects on the nervous system?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we know that this is a multi-organ disease. It's a nasty virus. It doesn't just attack the lungs. It doesn't just attack the blood vessels, but people have had liver problems, kidney problems, and they've also had these nervous system complaints, dizziness, headache, brain fog, lack of concentration. So you're certainly not alone. The good news is that the symptoms won't last forever. They can last quite a long time. Some people are all right within a few days. Some people take, even a few weeks to fully recover. So pace yourself. Don't be too impatient to go back to normal activities. Rest up, let your body recover. There's a very good tracker app. It's the King's Cross King's College Hospital
Right.
tracker app, which is free. It's called the COVID-19 tracker app. You can sign up to it, and it's really good in that people just add each day how they feel, whether they've had COVID-19, and it's 3 million people plus are already on it, and that's one of the reasons how we discovered why people lose their sense of taste and smell, because so many people said that was the case. So it becomes apparent what people's experiences are. So your experience isn't unique. It's nothing to worry about. It's annoying, of course, and it's inconvenient, but it will get better. It's just going to take a bit of time, but it's unpredictable how long that will be.
Yeah, I've seen in the news that you get a lot of things like the misting and the electrostatic cleaning, but for those of us at home, would steam cleaning be enough to kind of kill the virus on things like soft furnishings and carpets and things like that?
Yeah, the virus is nasty when it gets into human beings and their cells. When it gets inside our noses and throats, it invades cells quite quickly. But the virus itself is quite frail. It doesn't survive very long on its own. It decays naturally. So anything that is mechanically dangerous to it, such as steam, heat, ultraviolet light outdoors, and extremes of temperature, is likely to kill it off. So bleach products for hard surfaces, cleaning things like computer keyboards, door handles, desktops, that sort of thing, that's important. Washing in a hot wash, your clothes are going to be completely cleared of any possible COVID-19 virus. And again, with carpet, soft furnishings, we don't think the virus can live on its own for more than 2 or 3 days. And if you're using those things on soft furnishings and furniture, then you're very likely to kill it off completely.
The 84-year-old father-in-law has got ischemic heart disease, heart failure, AF, diabetes, COPD, and he's currently just been diagnosed with a chest infection.
Right.
Should he be shielding? Because I've been shielding him. I won't let him go out.
Yeah. He's got a number of existing conditions there that make him much more vulnerable to COVID-19. Yeah. The good news is that the prevalence rates in the general population is falling, so that's good. It means that hopefully one day he can stop having to shield. But yeah, he's got some underlying heart conditions. He's got obstructive pulmonary airways disease, which means his lungs are more vulnerable, and this existing infection. So yeah, I think just for his safety, he needs to shield for a bit longer. The rules are being relaxed on shielding, but if he can just be patient and get over this chest infection, summer's going to be here for a while, hopefully. So, we can see on the horizon, there's hope. The fact, he'll be able to go out and about and meet up with some buddies in due course. But right now, he needs to be a little bit more careful for a bit longer.
Okay. Also, basically the same question for me. I've got multiple conditions. I've got sleep apnea, COPD as well, thyroid, fibromyalgia, ME.
Yeah.
Am I anywhere more at risk or not?
Any of those conditions in themselves don't mean that you need to shield any longer. The restrictions have been relaxed a little bit, and it probably do you the world of good just to get out in the fresh air a little bit, maybe nip down to the shop. But the essential...
I'll do that.
Oh, you do anyway? Yeah.
Yeah, because there's nobody else to do our shopping, so I've got to do ours and my father-in-law's.
Okay.
And we've got a small dog that we take out 4 or 5 times a day, so I do get out.
Lovely. Yeah, and that's probably doing you the world of good with a little bit of exercise, especially with the fibromyalgia and the ME. You're going to feel tired. You're probably very careful anyway. But yeah, as long as you're socially distancing, as long as you're wearing some face covering, I think that's absolutely fine. You're doing a great job looking after your father-in-law, and all my best to both of you.